what the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Welcome, everyone. We are doing a chat today. You guys have seen Clearwater George on my live streams in downtown Clearwater, but we've never done a chat before. This is our first chat. We figured, you know what? Let's iron out all the kinks. Let's figure it out. And I think we've done that. How's it going, George?
Awesome. Just excellent. Having a great time. Yeah.
So let's see. Actually, you know what I should do? I should pull up your YouTube channel. But while I'm doing that, let's tell everyone how we met here in Clearwater.
Yeah. Well, our children go to school together. We have 5 teenagers amongst us that we are raising, and with that comes all the challenges of having 5 teenagers, 4 girls and a boy. So so we met that way, and I didn't even know much about your channel or anything about your channel. Next thing you know, I'm on with you.
That's right. The name of Clearwater George's channel is Surrounded by Scientology. So, George, you grew up on the south side of Chicago, but you moved to Clearwater after college or after high school?
After college. Well, before high school for a year, and then after college, and here permanently in the late 70s. Right around the same time the church arrived in Clearwater.
That's right. So you've been here just about as long as Scientology has been in Clearwater.
Yes. And fortunately, when I first got here, my cousin warned me. He said, "It's a cult."
And you know pretty much everyone in Clearwater. Pretty much everyone in Clearwater knows you. You've got a long history in the business community down here, in the nonprofit sector down here. Why don't you tell everyone a few words about the nonprofit that you ran locally?
Yeah, well, there's a couple nonprofits that I've been involved with, but the 2 that I really took a lot of pride with, it's Children with Cancer. One is the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation. The other was Camp Good Days and Special Times. Both of them provided services or research for children with cancer. I got involved with that through a roundabout situation. One of my best friends died of cancer, started volunteering in that community, and found out that the children needed help. The children did not sign up for this disease. They were dealt all kinds of bad things, like their treatments and missing school, et cetera, et cetera. So we just decided to jump in and give them some fun stuff to do. So that's what started out with Camp Good Days and Special Times, providing the camp for the children with cancer. And then I've met some women at the St. Joe's Hospital here in Tampa. They actually were doing research for childhood cancer because there was no research going on. With that, I got involved and stayed with each of those organizations for almost 30 years. And as I watched your channel and started meeting some of the second generation Scientology kids, I realized that being born in Scientology was like getting cancer. You didn't sign up for it, and it did bad things to you. So that's one of my interests here, is to really help out and see if we can't really help these people that are trapped. They may not think they can get out, but we know that we can. And you and I did talk a lot about the foundations and things that happen within foundations. We're just going to be committed to doing what's best for the people that you want to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many local stories. There's so many stories that you have of what it was like being a non-Scientologist growing up surrounded by Scientology. I know all of your friends have similar stories, because a lot of your friends are long-time multi-generation locals. And one of your friends was telling me a story about having to go in for a service call to service the telephone that was on the desk of L. Ron Hubbard's office inside the Fort Harrison. And this was well after L. Ron Hubbard had passed away. And
many
this was
years
L.
after
Ron
he died.
Hubbard's, his ceremonial office, where it's like no one works in the office. It's really just for show. And they called in a service tech to fix the office phone. I mean, we hear stories of up at the International Management Base in Gilman Hot Springs, where they lay out his clothes for him every morning as if he's, could possibly walk in and resume taking over control every single day. But I don't know, hearing him be like, did someone use this phone? Like,
it had a pack of cigarettes, and he said, "Well, nobody's going to be using this phone." I said, "Just fix the phone. Just fix the phone."
Okay, tell me the story. One of the first stories you ever told me was, you said, I'm pretty sure that me and my rugby buddies played rugby with Mike Rinder and his buddies at the Flag Land Base back in the 60s or something. What's the story? Not the 60s, the 70s, the 80s?
Yeah, 70s, 80s. So we have a local rugby club, Pelican Rugby Club, started in 1977. And we play here in Clearwater, Florida. And one day we get a phone call that the Church of Scientology has a rugby team and they want to play against us. And we're like, there's no way. But yeah, so they showed up over at Ross Norton Park in Clearwater. And it was a young Australian guy, and he was their leader. And I'm pretty darn sure it was Mike Rinder. That, the timing kind of fits. So I've been talking to some of the old boys about who played that game. A couple of them remember playing. They think it was 1982 because one of the South Africans had just gotten here from South Africa and playing rugby with us. And he said he got here in 82. He remembers the game. But the interesting thing about the game is that there was a couple guys who knew how to play rugby, like the Aussie, who may have been Mike Rinder, and a few others. But the rest of them were just young kids, teenagers. And it was not real pleasant for them. We were kind of having our way. We were beating them up a little bit on the rugby pitch. And something really weird happened. So what is contact in Scientology? Maybe you can help put some context to that.
A contact assist.
Contact assist.
So a contact assist in Scientology is if someone gets injured, the idea is that there's some, mental trauma associated with the pain of the incident, and that the way to keep that incident from having a negative effect on the person in the future is to run out the incident by going back through the motions of the injury and gently remaking contact with the injured body part. So let's say you had whacked your hand with a hammer. First you would get any first aid that you needed, but the contact assist would be going through the exact motions again with the actual hammer, but like doing it in slow motion and like making contact with the injured body part. And the idea is if you do it enough times over and over and over, the pain will actually go away and you'll be, free to live your life without having your attention stuck on that incident. That is a contact assist. And any young person growing up in Scientology is made to do contact assists anytime they injure themselves.
Well, we had two injuries in that game. And the first injury, this player from the Scientology team had a pretty bad shoulder, separated shoulder. And because I was captain of the team, I used to triage the injuries. So I could tell his shoulder was separated. He was in a lot of pain. So they came over and they did contact assist. All the Scientologists came to him and they did contact assist. And they would touch him and they would pull back. And they would touch him, they would pull back. And we're all standing there going, what the heck is this? And they thought, this kid was going to heal, right? But Mongo, one of our players who fits his name, he stood there and went, dude, his shoulder's still effed up. Nothing, it didn't heal his shoulder at all. So
did you say his name was Mongo?
Mongo, yes. Mongo is one of our players. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he was named after the character from Blazing Saddles and fit it well. But he just made no bones about it. He was laughing at him. So that kid goes off the field. We're playing a little bit later. Somebody gets their eye split open. One of the Scientologists. Same kind of thing. They come in, contact assist. It didn't work. It didn't work either time. And Mongo's a big guy. And just to have him sitting there ridiculing him and going, it doesn't work. What are you guys doing? We ended up having to stop the game. We were beating them up pretty bad. And we thought, you know what? This has been enough. I don't think they ever called us to play them again. But I would love to find out sometime if that was Mike Rinder, because the timeline kind of lines up as far as age goes and all. Now, for me, go ahead, Aaron.
Well, let me see. Kay's in the house. Could have been Rob McClay, an Aussie who worked at Celebrity Center International, was in his 30s at that time. So, yeah, I'm for any of you former Scientologists who were at Flag in the early 80s, any information you can share with us on who, because Scientology, my guess is this, and Scientology would not have had an actual organized rugby team. I think what it would have been is a bunch of Aussies or rugby playing folks who did this during their exercise time. Was this in the morning or was this at night?
Would have been early afternoon.
Early afternoon. Or maybe it could have been on their day, on one of their days off. Yeah. Because back then you could actually get days off pretty regularly.
Yeah. And we normally played on Saturday, so they may have asked us to play early in the morning. I don't remember. But I do remember playing them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
So
then,
whoever knows anything about the rugby team that the Sea Org members at Flag put together in the early 80s, like this would be some fascinating stuff to hear some stories about this from other people who were there too.
yeah. And so let's stick to contact assist because I'd never really heard that since. But then I was watching Sterling as I started consuming all kinds of SPTV. Once I found you, I started watching Reese and Sterling and Tommy and everybody and Laura FM and Kelly Copter, everybody on SPTV. And Sterling was telling a story about being out in LA, somewhere where he was as a kid. They're riding their bikes or doing something out back, and one of the kids fell and hurt himself. Out the door comes John Travolta. And John Travolta comes down and does contact assist for this kid that had crashed on his bicycle. And I'm thinking, man, 40 years ago, I got to see it here in Clearwater. It didn't work. And John Travolta's still trying to do it out in LA. So, and I think that was Sterling that told that story.
Yeah. Incredible. Now you you just know so many people who've lived here for so long that it's my hope that when a lot of the Clearwater locals see that we're doing all this content together, that, it sort of crosses their mind. Oh, you know what? That might be fun. Or, oh, you know what? Maybe because I feel like the older generations, it's sort of been baked into their consciousness that you should be afraid of Scientology.
Absolutely.
What's your take on that? Do you think the
Sure.
older generation just is still has this idea like, oh my God, stay away from them. Oh, they're going to destroy you. They're going to ruin you.
Yes. However, the dam has been broken between Leah Remini's show, what Going Clear, her show, and now your channel and SPTV. Absolutely. And the response I'm getting, I started 1 week ago. You and I had dinner downtown Clearwater, and we walked out and you did that video, and it was so well received from people going, wow, you can hear about a ghost town, but until you see a ghost town, you don't understand the impact. Now I've got a lot of my friends reaching out to me and they say, now we're getting mad. Now we're starting to realize what impact it has negatively on the community because, and I don't know the exact numbers, Aaron, but something like 60% of downtown property in Clearwater doesn't pay taxes, not on the tax roll. We're starting to highlight some of those buildings. People are starting to get mad about it. And what you've helped convince me is they're not going to be coming after us because they can't sue us. And they've got a lot to risk by being deposed. I mean, a lot at risk, a lot to lose. So a lot of people are starting to change their attitudes a little bit. I have a friend that wrote one of the first exposés in the St. Pete Times, which is now known as the Tampa Bay Times, back in the early 80s. One of the first, she was part of a team and they exposed Scientology. They won a Pulitzer Prize for it. Their family started getting harassed and was harassed horribly. The family still is somewhat traumatized by it. When I was sharing with that friend that I was doing this, I said, would you come on camera, go on camera? She said, no, not ready. No. And even that technician, that guy worked for the local utility company we were talking about earlier with the L. Ron Hubbard office. At first he was a bit reluctant, but he's starting to laugh now. And he's getting a big kick out of this because he has been here as long as I have, but he's actually been in all those buildings. The story that he was telling about the Hacienda Gardens or Sherwood Forest, he went in there to put the phones in.
Sherwood Gardens.
And he walked in and there was 8 beds and 8 mattresses on the floor in the 2-bedroom apartment. He's like, what the heck is this? Put the phone in. Then it was years later, I see Leah Remini describing that in her show about, we're going to Clearwater, Florida. We hear it's beautiful. And when they get here, her and her kids, and they walk in, they swing the door up and there's 8 mattresses laying on the floor of a 2-bedroom apartment. This is where they were sent to. All these stories are starting to kind of come together from what I'm hearing with the SPTV, with you second gen Scientologists. And then for those of us who are never in, we're starting to hear and see what goes on. To see those buildings, security cameras everywhere. We're starting to tour like the complexes where the first thing they do, they put fences up, they put the bushes up, security gates, cameras everywhere. Why?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm hoping that there are locals who will be, who maybe for whatever reason don't want to do videos or interviews with me, but who have a history with you, know you, like you, trust you, and will want to do videos and interviews with you. I'm hoping this like opens up a whole new the word is escaping me, but a whole new avenue, like tapping a whole new well of local historical knowledge and stories and anecdotes about how Scientology really transformed this downtown, this city, this whole area, and what locals really think of Scientology. See, I'm endlessly fascinated at what someone who's never been in Scientology, grew up here, has been, like the name of your channel says, surrounded by it. Like all the people in your generation and maybe even a little bit younger who went to Clearwater High, for example, who actually went to Clearwater High. Did you know that when they first came to the Clearwater, that Shelley Miscavige went to Clearwater High? Mark Yeager, one of Scientology's senior executives, went to Clearwater High School. These guys were so young. They actually had to enroll in public school while they were also some of Scientology's most senior executives in the Commodore's Messengers org. There is yearbook photos of Shelley Miscavige and Mark Yeager and some of these other guys from Clearwater, from the Clearwater High School yearbook.
I had no idea. No, I thought they were in their little bubble, but they were actually out in the community early on, huh?
Yeah. Like that. I want to hear from people who actually remember them from high school.
But Aaron, to your point, I've been reading the comments, and a lot of Clearwater people are saying it's about time someone's doing something about this. Can't we go downtown and have some kind of meetups and pizza parties and support those businesses that have had the cojones, the audacity to open up down there and to try and stay in business? I've seen so many of them come and go. Only 7 days with the channel, and the comments have been fantastic. One of the visions that we've talked about show the difference in Tampa Bay. For the audience that may not be in the area, Tampa Bay consists of St. Petersburg, Tampa, Clearwater, the beaches, Dunedin, all kinds of little communities. Some of them are waterfront, like Clearwater, St. Pete, Tampa, Dunedin, Tarpon Springs, and they all have vibrant downtown or little business districts on their waterfront. Clearwater has just been killed. Downtown Clearwater has just been killed by Scientology. And we wanted to show that. So when I did the one video, we started Tuesday night, we were downtown, then I went back on Friday night, showed dead downtown, went into Dunedin, and just showed 3 spots, just 3 of my favorite spots, of course, but showed them. What a contrast. And that's what people are highlighting in the comments, saying, great job of showing the contrast. Those 3 restaurants represent 3 of 40 restaurants in downtown Dunedin. Downtown Clearwater can't support 4 restaurants, let alone 40 restaurants. The tax base is missing. The revenue base is missing. That's where people start to get mad about it.
Absolutely. One of the biggest cons Scientology has been able to play on local officials, whether it's city officials or county officials or even state officials, is that, they would love to create a thriving, vibrant downtown community. If only the city would do X, Y, and Z, Scientology would be more than happy to do A, B, and C. Or if only the Tampa Bay Times would stop stirring up hatred and bigotry against Scientology, we could have a vibrant and thriving downtown. And you go, Scientology's had 40, they came in 75. So they've had like 50 years. Scientology has had 50 years to create a beautiful, thriving, vibrant downtown. If that was truly what they wanted to do. It's clearly not what they want to do. They just like to dangle it as a carrot in front of local leaders and politicians to be like, if you would just do what we're asking you to do, we could do this for you. And it's like, if Scientology wanted to create a beautiful, thriving, and vibrant downtown, they would stop talking about it as something they could do for the city leaders. It should be something they want to do for themselves. And that's how you know they don't want to do it, because they could just do it. Right. Yeah. And one of the things that we've been showing in our videos that we do downtown is that the Scientologists simply don't even go out on the streets. They don't even leave the buildings. There's not enough Scientologists in the area to support an economic district or to keep businesses open. And you might go, okay, well, what's the point of continuing to harp on this point? I'm not entirely sure that elected leadership truly understands. I feel like the Chris Latvalas of the world, and what's Chris's father's name? Jim Latvala?
I don't know.
The Latvalas. Jack Latvala, Chris Latvala, Brian Ongst, Frank Hibbard, Joe Burdett. I feel like these guys buy into the propaganda that Scientology puts out there, that they have some sort of a multi-billion-dollar annual economic impact on the community, and they should be treated just like everyone else. When the reality is, they should be treated like a criminal enterprise that's trying to sabotage the city, is actually how they should be treated. And I'm not really sure that the leadership gets it, but I also don't know how to explain how there could be such a disconnect between what your average citizen, what is clear and obvious to the average citizen. I don't know how to explain the disconnect between why these things would be clear and obvious to your average citizen, but not clear and obvious to those in elected or appointed leadership. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's a tough one. And, the only thing that we've talked about is there's influence. Church of Scientology has brought in some wealthy parishioners that have invested their money around Clearwater. And again, the Tampa Bay Times, being the net they are to Church of Scientology, would show how church members would buy the property and then it would end up in the hands of the church, those types of things. So maybe it's because there has been, in terms of some of those wealthier donors, maybe they support some of their foundations and things. I don't know. I haven't been at that level. I stay out of politics. I'm actually shocked that you thought you might want to run for public office. People ask me all the time, why don't you run for public office? And I would say, because I might get elected. So that's why I don't run.
By the way, for anyone just joining us, you can find George's YouTube channel at Surrounded by Scientology. George has been coming out with me every night doing the live streaming in downtown Clearwater. You've only had your channel up for a week. You've got 3,500 subscribers. Your videos are getting a lot of views, a lot of great responses, reactions, and comments.
Okay, let me apologize first, because the first couple of days were pretty rough. And whether I was shooting people's feet or whether I was shooting at the top of buildings because I didn't know how to work the camera yet, it was pretty rough for the first few videos, but they've gotten better. So we're working on it.
Yeah. The last thing you were saying jogged my memory on something I wanted to bring up, and it left just as quickly as it came. What do you see as the future of the videos that we've been doing? Where do you see this going?
Well, great question. I don't know how much of your audience is watching what's going out in LA with the TikTokers. There had been some protests in the past, from what I understand. I think when Lisa McPherson had died under the care or lack of care in Scientology, allegedly, that people start protesting. I think people are going to start coming out. You've seen the reaction that we're getting from a few of the people that find us. We cover a big area, and it's amazing. We're walking probably about an 8-block area, and people are finding us. And they're pulling up, and we're not sure if it's the security guards coming or if it's AA Ron fans, but they make themselves known pretty quick. I see this thing taking on a lot of legs. I see a lot of people have been wanting to come out, and even a lot of the locals haven't been downtown for a long time.
That's
I
true.
think they're going to start coming out. A lot of people don't know Cleveland Street's closed. It is a pedestrian mall. And those tables should be filled between Clear Sky and the pizza place and some of the other restaurants that you would know by name. We went out there. It was Taco Tuesday the night you and I went out at that little place, and it was Taco Tuesday for the two of us. That was it.
Speaking of which, George, it's Tuesday.
Well,
maybe we celebrate our 1-week anniversary and we go back down to where did we had gone down to the Nash Keys Bar and Grill. There's also Tequilas, but I'd like to stay on the 500 block maybe.
Yeah, I think it was Nash Keys, but I think because it was like they were going to expand it. It was right near that cigar bar that had one person in it.
Yes, Captain's something.
Yeah.
Let's go down there. I mean, obviously, George and I are going to go back out again tonight. We don't know exactly what time, but maybe we'll go back to that place. Let me try to pull it up here. Because if anybody wants to come down and say hi.
Yeah. While you're doing that, Aaron, let me share one other thing. When I first met you, you had just done Lex Fridman's podcast. And I didn't know who Lex Fridman was. I didn't know they had, I think, the second largest podcast on in the U.S., something like that, one of the top 3. Is he that Lex Fridman, right?
Yeah, I think he might be like number 12.
Okay. It's pretty
Something
big,
like
pretty
that.
big. So I listened to that podcast. Here you are representing what Scientology is all about, because they won't talk about it. And you do a great job explaining it. Last I looked, was it 2.8 million views or something on that? There was a lot of views on that particular getting up there.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah. So whatever it was, you're out there helping to educate people like myself. I learned a lot from hearing him interview you. He did a great interview. It's a very good podcast if anybody hasn't seen it yet. So those are the kind of things that I started to consume and start to help me understand. And then again, it comes back to the people. And whether it's Liz Gale or Natalie Webster or Reese, Relatable Reese, or Sterling, yourself, you guys touched a nerve with me as people who lived it, were damaged by it. Mary Kahn, you guys had the audacity to get out and talk about it and to know some of the suffering that went on. And again, I relate children with cancer and I relate born into Scientology. To me, neither of you had a choice. The difference now is that you guys are out and you're putting a spotlight on it like never before. And I just think it's awesome.
Well, thank you. Okay, so it's a little confusing down here on this block where the bar restaurant that we went to, because some of these businesses have been coming soon for a while. I think the actual name of the place we were was the Prelude Sports Bar, which is next door to Captain's Cigar Lounge, which is next door to the Nash Keys Dueling Piano Bar that hasn't actually opened yet. And so the Prelude Sports Bar is kind of serving double duty, as it's the Prelude Sports Bar and it's Nash Keys until the real Nash Keys opens up. But if anyone wants to, because maybe when we're down there, George, maybe I'll bring my new little Bluetooth microphone, my Bluetooth lapel mics for the phone, and maybe we'll try to do a little live stream from Prelude Sports Bar just while we're there.
Yeah. Yeah. The noise level should be pretty low inside the place.
It's true. And it's a damn shame, right? Because when we talk about, we were the only people in the place, and happy hour had just ended. It sounds like we're crapping on the establishment, and we're not. It's a great establishment, great food, great. It's just nobody likes coming to downtown Clearwater because people assume that all the businesses down there are owned by Scientologists. And believe it or not, they're not. And none of the businesses on the 500 block of Cleveland Street, let me see, is this the 5? Yeah. None of the businesses on the north side of the 500 block of Cleveland Street are owned by Scientologists. And in fact, that block, the whole 500 block, is that's the only block of commercial property I'm aware of that's actually not owned by a Scientologist. I know the woman who owns the property. She's this lovely Greek woman who's extremely supportive of everything that we do on SPTV. She was extremely supportive of me when I was running for city council 2 years ago. She's a fantastic woman. And so, and I love supporting the businesses that roll the dice to open up down there, because they don't get the support that they need. And I think if more and more people really understood those businesses aren't owned by Scientologists, people would come down. Now, look, I've never really been in support of boycotting Scientologist-owned businesses, but the fact is, the people who've been here in Clearwater for generations, it's not that they want to boycott the businesses. It's that they don't want their money going to Scientology. And they just know that to some extent, if they're patronizing businesses that are owned by Scientologists, that money eventually flows through to Scientology. And so I don't advocate boycotts like that, but I understand why people feel that way. And that's why I think it's important for people to know which food and drink establishments are not owned by Scientologists, so that you can at least have the opportunity to support those businesses if you want to. So the Prelude Sports Bar, Captain's Cigar Lounge, Soul Sicilian Fusion, the Italian restaurant, and the Nash Keys Dueling Piano Bar are places that you can take my word for it. Those places are not owned by Scientologists, and their landlord is not a Scientologist. There aren't many other places in downtown Clearwater you can say that about.
And Aaron, I'd like to make a couple points to what you just said. Number one, tonight there'll be plenty of parking because there's no concert at the Sound or at the Capitol Theater. So don't worry about parking. Come on down and we'll find you, or you find us. Okay,
That's
David
right.
Barron is telling us. Hey, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
So
part two of
we
that.
can't say what
Go
time
ahead.
we're going to be there because we just don't know. But I'll tell you what, guys, if you're in the Clearwater area and you see me and George go live down there, just feel free to come on out, have a drink with us. You know,
Taco
more than welcome.
Tuesday.
Taco
So,
Tuesday.
so the second part of my point, Aaron, when there is a concert, like we saw the Styx concert last Friday, those places were jamming. Good for them.
Mhm.
And I know that
Yeah.
pizza place was just till they closed, they were balls and walls. So it's all good.
That's right. And one of the things I've mentioned on our live streams, just because I think it's funny for people to know, your cousin is one of the founding members of Styx. So tell everyone who your cousin is.
Well, my two cousins, Chuck and Johnny Panozzo, on the south side of Chicago, it's a great story. They're actually in their basement playing their little band, and the third guy walked by and heard music, and it's told on story of the Stick story. A guy named Dennis DeYoung was walking by and said, "Hey, you guys sound great. Let's start a band." So Dennis DeYoung, Chucky Panozzo, and Johnny Panozzo started a band called the Trade Winds. They would play weddings and little parties around the south side of Chicago. They added a fourth guy, changed their name to TW4. And then when they actually cut an album, they said, well, we need a better name. And they sat with the record producers and came up with the band Styx, the name Styx. And they kicked ass. And at one point, you heard some of the stories the other night. At one point, they were the first band to have 4 triple platinum albums in a row. Not the Beatles, not the Stones, not Led Zeppelin. So they're pretty big. They hit it pretty big. Fast forward to now, we're talking in the early 60s. They are still out there. They're just killing it. Dennis has moved on. He's doing his own music. My cousin Johnny had passed away. Okay, Jeezy peasy. My cousin, unfortunately, Johnny had a bit of an alcohol problem, and he couldn't stay in rehab, and he died at the young age of 47. But his brother Chuck is still out there, and they are just kicking butt. If you get a chance to see them, and they love playing places like the Sound. They just really do well there. And we always get comments from anybody on the south side of Chicago. Styx played at their high school dance because that was a huge deal. They played almost every high school dance on the south side of Chicago.
All right, let's take a look at some of these comments. Tumble Dry Low. Marcy says, oh man, George, you've seen changes. My family moved to Collier, Colorado in the 70s. West Coast was a totally different place in the 70s. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Trumbull Drylow, we're trying to see a lot more changes here in Clearwater.
Yeah. Oh, Lori McMullen is someone who's been here for her family's been here for generations. In fact, McMullen Booth is named after her family. Diana Mari. Oh, thank you. Too many to remember. Oh, see, I thought this was a comment to us, but I think she was just responding to somebody else. We got Clearwater Chad, Tampa Brad, David Miscavige's sister that drives intoxicated and smokes weed, David Miscavige's niece, Whitney, that tried to swap an arrest warrant for coochie. Welcome to Clearwater. All right. I did.
There's some inside info right there.
I guess I should have read that one before I brought it up, but that's okay. Heather Reese, it's wonderful to see such love and support for those ready to escape. How do you keep an open heart and mind and still protect you and your family? I don't know. It's not something I work on. I wish I had a better answer to that question, Heather, but I guess it's just kind of the way it is. Sandy McKenna says, moved to Clearwater in 76. I can relate to everything George says. Very cool. Love Maddie says, support Mark Bunker for Clearwater City Council. Absolutely, guys. If you're watching this stream right now, if I can remember to put a link to it in the description, I will. But Mark Bunker 2024. We have 3 months. Oh, we have 8 weeks. We have 2 months until the election. We're trying to help Mark Bunker get reelected to the Clearwater City Council. And if you go to his website, consider making a donation to his reelection campaign, please. Okay, Paula Bizak. George, do you know Jose Font, photographer from the defunct Clearwater Sun?
I don't know Jose, but I knew a lot of writers from the Clearwater Sun. There's been some articles that have been written there that I'm very aware of. And back then, 2 papers used to actually compete with each other, the Clearwater Sun and the St. Pete Times. St. Pete Times won out on that, but no, I don't know Jose Font.
You just reminded me of something. When the St. Petersburg Times is now the Tampa Bay Times, or, they were assimilated, or one or the other. Did they change the name or did they get assimilated?
Changed the name, but they bought the Tampa Tribune.
Oh,
so
there you go.
They changed it. The only 2 remaining newspapers were the St. Pete Times and Tampa Tribune. Clearwater Sun got put out of business. But then the St. Pete Times changed their name to Tampa Bay Times and bought the Tampa Tribune.
Okay. So when the St. Petersburg Times was the St. Petersburg Times, Scientology loved calling them the SP Times. Okay. But then Scientology built that giant building in downtown Clearwater across from the Fort Harrison Hotel, and they call it the Superpower Building. So obviously it needs to be called the SP Building.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
See, Aaron, you
Just
reminded me
wanted
the rugby players didn't have superpowers, so none of them must have been at the OT levels. That's all I could think of.
That's right. Martha Simmons, I remember how great Clearwater was before Scientology. It was a charming, busy town. Yeah. Betsy Gar, what is Mark's plan if he is voted in? Betsy, Mark is already on the city council. He won his election 4 years ago. He's now running for re-election. So, yeah, there you go. Ken's channel says, I figured it out. You're like the gunslinger that rides into town. Residents close the blinds, shut the doors, and the eyes peep through the windows.
Ken's channel, that is so funny. And the other night, one of the drive-bys that stopped, she said, this looks like a movie set. This looks like something out of North Korea. It looks like a movie set. It's eerie. And she nailed it. That was the couple in the white car that drove up. That's exactly what it looks like. Yeah.
And she was driving her friend around downtown just to show him how creepy it looked. They weren't former Scientologists. They didn't even seem to know much about it other than you've got to get a load of this. You've got to get a load of this ghost town. Tumble Dry Low says, so if we start going to more businesses in Clearwater, how do we make it clear more activity would happen without Scientology? I mean, I don't know. Like, it depends on who you're trying to make it clear to. I think we're probably capable of continuing to make it clear. Like I guess what I'm saying is, if all you're doing is going downtown and patronizing a restaurant, I don't know there's really an ability to send some sort of a greater message other than just continuing to patronize the restaurants that really do need your support and are actually trying to help bring non-Scientologists back to downtown Clearwater. Now, I know some people have said, why would we want to bring non-Scientologists back to downtown Clearwater? Wouldn't that just help the Scientologists? And the answer is no, because many people don't know this. You cannot join Scientology in Clearwater. That's actually why David Miscavige tries to keep non-Scientologists away from downtown Clearwater. The Flagland Base, which is what they call the organization in downtown Clearwater, the Flagland Base and Scientology Ship are the two highest level organizations in Scientology. They are class 12 organizations. You can only join Scientology at class 5 organizations or below, and there's no class 5 organization in downtown Clearwater. There is a mission in Bel Air. Bel Air is just a few minutes south of Clearwater. There's a mission there. You can join Scientology in Bel Air. You cannot join Scientology in Clearwater. So if you're a non-Scientologist in the Pinellas County area and you come to downtown Clearwater, I promise you, that's what David Miscavige doesn't want you to do. So if you want to give David Miscavige, little Captain Davy of the fake Space Navy, the big middle finger, come to downtown Clearwater and support Prelude Sports Bar, Captain's Cigar Lounge, Nash Keys Dueling Piano Bar, Soul Sicilian Fusion Italian. These are great places to help out.
Yeah.
Okay, Kay's in the house. After 74 years, Scientology is feeling what it's like to lose their power. They're hiding, disengaging, and desperate. Thank you, Aaron, and everyone. Keep up the pressure. Absolutely. So George has been coming down with me every night. Once again, guys, his channel is surrounded by Scientology. Lori Plays, one of my moderators. Lori's been coming down every night. Her channel is Lori Plays Official. That's LAURIPLAYS Official. Clearwater Cheryl, aka Feral Cheryl. Cheryl named her channel Feral Cheryl on the Loose. She's been coming down every night, and a lot of other people who don't have channels have been coming out just to support, and that's been very very cool as well. Okay,
and it really helps.
It
helps us out too when they show up. Mm-hmm.
It definitely does. Marcy says, maybe consumers could blow up the area with activity and the land would become too valuable and price Scientology out of the market. Some kind of weird gentrification. Unfortunately, Marcy, that wouldn't work. Scientology is actually the one paying 3, 4, 5 times the market value for properties in cash, properties they don't need, properties they leave vacant, properties they do not develop. And they're buying these properties just to prevent other people from buying these properties up and developing them and putting anything on that land that would attract non-Scientologists. Because Scientology does not pay any income tax, because they do not pay property tax, they only pay property tax on about less than 24% of their property. And the only reason they pay any property tax at all is because they have to pay tax on the square footage that they own that is purely dedicated to restaurants and hotels. They're not able to claim restaurant and hotel square footage as religious use. So
Well,
what's amazing is that even though they only pay taxes on just over 20% of their property, that still makes them the largest taxpayer in downtown Clearwater. And that is because of the sheer quantity of property they have snapped up and taken off of the tax rolls. It's truly incredible. What were you going to say?
hey, come back to that point you just made for a second. If a hotel and restaurant that they own has to pay taxes, shouldn't it be open to the public?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because we know when you show up to Fort Harrison, the blinds are down, the doors are locked. There's, they're not letting you in. They're not letting anybody in.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I guess if you own a restaurant, you are paying. If you own a building and you have a privately owned restaurant in there, and you own the building and you own the business, you're paying property tax, but you still have a right to refuse service to anybody, right? You're not, man. It's not. Yeah, just because you pay property tax doesn't mean that business has to be open to the public. You still get to determine who can and cannot go in.
Not sure.
But there is one thing, someone called something to my attention earlier today. I did a short little live stream earlier at a new motel that Scientology has taken over. And no one really knows that they've taken this thing over. They've had it for over a year now. And it's up near the intersection of Drew and US 19, Gulf to Bay and US 19. And somebody pointed out to me that all the zoning in that area, that is commercial zoning. And that motel would have been a commercial business and would have been in a commercial zone district. But if Scientology buys that motel and now turns it into living residences for its own staff members, isn't that now residential use? Or are they actually now misusing that property based on its zoning? Isn't it now residential? And I thought that was something interesting that could be looked into further. Anyway, just people bringing up interesting points.
Yeah. Well, I noticed when that place was being renovated, normally they'll renovate motels or hotels like that, and then they slap a nameplate on it. Comfort Inn, Holiday Inn, nothing. Just completely barren. So it was weird. Then you explained to us last night on one of the lives about that building at the corner of Sunset Point in Edgewater, and the property guy downtown that built Tom Cruise's building.
Moises Agami and Valor Capital.
Valor Capital built that. I'm pretty sure it was a Comfort Inn when it was first opened, just to have some cash flow and some revenue. I knew someone who stayed there. I went and fed her kids. She was a local person, but it was a Comfort Inn, and then they just turned it into, unless they tore the Comfort Inn down, which I don't remember, they just turned that into private residence.
Yeah, they built that thing from the ground up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Gabrielle Badwolf says, from Ireland and would consider going to Clearwater on vacation if I could afford one. Play a gamer if Scientologist spotting, it's like bird watching. Play a game of Scientologist spotting? Yeah. That's almost what we've been doing down there, trying to find the Scientologists. All right, well, guys, one more peek here. George's channel is surrounded by Scientology. Go give him a subscribe. We're going to be doing so much stuff together. And our goal here was just to do a little test run, do a first little chat, officially introduce you to the audience, and tell some stories. We're going to be doing so much more of that in the future. CO Bilf has joined the chat. We need like a dozen guys in Clearwater Chad costumes going to these hotels and asking if they have any vacancies. There's nobody to even ask. These hotels are not manned. They don't, because they're not really hotels. They're not really motels. It's just where the Sea Org members live.
It's spooky. It's scary. And even as we're filming it, I'm like, is this really the way it is? People drive by those three properties on North Fort Harrison that we were at last night. Yeah. And people just thought they're completely vacant. They're not vacant. those people on such weird
This is
schedules.
actually, okay, this, I've got to think about this some more, or someone who understands this subject better than me, please help us think about this. Scientology's had those motels there for over 20 years, but they're not motels. They're just residences, but they still have signs out front that says no vacancy, as if for some reason they have to pretend it's an actual motel. There must be some legal reason that they're trying to be like, oh, we're a fully booked motel, instead of like, no, this is where our staff members live. Doesn't it seem a little weird? No one would ever confuse the Hacienda Gardens with a motel or a hotel.
Right. It's an apartment.
Nobody would ever confuse the Sherwood Gardens as a hotel. Anyway, there's something to understand better there. Beth Scott, yeah, you two should sell shirts listing ways to help get Scientology out of Clearwater. Okay.
Yeah.
Might be
We
a
got some
challenge.
ideas. We're working them.
Yeah. All right, guys, we are going to wrap it up here this afternoon. Stay tuned. We're going to be live streaming later this evening. You can watch it on my channel, watch it on George's channel. Much more to come. Thank you for hanging out with us this afternoon, guys. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, oh, dancing for my love, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right